the I just call them the nuggets, but the horse manure sticks to that pine. So in one 12 by 12 stall, you can take out basically a 15-gallon bucket of bedding out every day when you're dealing with pine. With our bedding, with the hemp bedding, you're taking maybe a third of a bucket, and it's not the bedding. It's all just the manure and or the urine.
Hey guys, it's Mandy with Global Hemp Association. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. I'm excited about the opportunity to build a relationship and connect this supply chain. I mean, after all, that's why we started the association. Our association was built on the foundation of connecting supply chain, building relationships, and helping you grow your business. Anyone from farmers, manufacturers, and distributors, people that are passionate about the supply chain, and those creating products selling into biofuels, plastics, textiles, construction, and building materials.
Hi, Brian. I'm jealous of your warm weather. I was just sitting here and turned my heater on while the commercials were playing because it's freezing here in Salt Lake. We're getting dumped on right now. But you're over in Florida. Is that where you're at?
We're in Florida and we're sitting at about 87 degrees right now.
Oh, you poor thing. I'm jealous. I had to put a hoodie on. Well, everybody, I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm excited to dive into the equine market and the fiber and herd market over in Florida with Brian and hear what you've got going on and all of your experience over the last couple of years that, we were just kind of talking about behind the scenes about what market looks like and what we're going to need to do to really close some of these gaps. So I encourage all of you, chime in, let us know where you're listening from, tell us where you're at. I love knowing who's in and who's listening, whether you're coming on now from live, or if you listen to it later on. We record and share these again on multiple podcast channels, Moving Forward with Mandy Kerr. So you can find it there too. There's something like 400 podcasts out there that we've done. So very good stuff. Brian, before I talk too much, I want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what are you up to? How'd you get into this industry?
Well, Mandy, my name is Brian Dickerson. I'm with Equine Hemp Solutions. We also have Star Manufacturing Extraction, where we grow our own hemp, extract our own hemp, as far as on the cannabinoid and more importantly, the flavonoid side. And then we also grow our fiber brand and our canaf as well for the bedding side of the equine world. I'm a lawyer by trade. I represented pharmaceutical companies. And in 2012, 2013, some of my clients that were in the bigger pharmaceutical companies went and started their own biopharmaceutical companies, and I followed more with them. And it evolved into white labeling. It evolved into working with University of Mississippi and seeing what they had as far as cannabinoids for one of my clients. And over that time period, started representing the lab industry in the cannabinoid world. And by the time 2018 came around and the Farm Bill passes, me and my clients were like, we want to do this in a different way. Yeah. I had some of my clients that were very successful financially, sold to private equity. And when they sold to private equity, they ended up losing control. And what we ended up seeing is losing the control of the quality of the product. And so we were trying to have more of a controlling that soil to oil, that whole line, the vertical integration. So we know exactly what seeds, what's in the actual plant. And it's evolved from that. And of course, with the hurdles that everybody faced, from the CBD oil crash to COVID, to inflation, to everything supply side, we've survived that. We've adapted, and the equine market has probably been our best market to go into. A lot of people don't understand how much money is in the equine market. In the state of Florida alone, it's $8 billion.
You guys have like the horse capital of the world in Ocala, don't you?
Yeah, the people in Wellington will disagree with you. So you got Wellington, Florida, which is on the East Coast, which is more of your English riders. And
yeah.
Ocala is they claim horse capital of the world, where all your thoroughbreds are right now working and training in the winter. And you got the World Equestrian Center that was put in Ocala. If you haven't seen that, the Roberts family dropped $1 billion into making this facility, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So very cool. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Feel free to keep. I've got, of course, a list of questions that I'm interested in. Can you talk a little bit about the flavonoids? You know, we hear a lot about cannabinoid production, but I've really liked what you guys have done. I've seen your work quite a bit. I want to talk a little bit about, yeah, how is it different? Talk to me.
Well, the flavonoids, I think, is truly the untapped best benefit of the hemp cannabis plant. We have a plant, and our seeds are from Eastern Europe. And so they really do not have any high level of cannabinoids or THC in it. It's an heirloom plant. They're over 2,000-year-old seeds as far as tracing their origin. And they have a higher content of flavonoid in the plant. So US genetics have basically, or North American genetics have basically focused more on the cannabinoids and THC, and the flavonoids are still there, but they're at a very minute amount. The plant that we use has a higher intensity of flavonoids, and specifically canaflavin A, canaflavin B, and canaflavin C. And we're able to extract 25 flavonoids from our plants, our varieties. When you look at the research on it, the research basically says there's up to 26 flavonoids in the cannabis plant, hemp plant. And the amazing thing is, the best thing I think is when you look at the FDA and what the FDA's problem is right now with cannabinoids, flavonoids since 1997 is deemed by the FDA to be a dietary supplement. So the whole fight is a cannabinoid ever going to get dietary supplement, or is it going to be an OTC? With flavonoids, it's a no-brainer. It is designated by the FDA as a dietary supplement. It comes directly from the plant. There's no hallucination. There's no psychedelic effect. There's nothing like that can happen from a flavonoid. So when you're dealing in the marketplace and you have those people that are questioning, it's great because you can use that information. But then, Mandy, we can go back to 1985 and use Dr. Barrett's study from University of London showing that canaflavin A is 30 times stronger than an NSAID in anti-inflammatory properties. Okay. So you look at everybody today dousing, taking Advil, taking ibuprofen, and what it does to their stomach. In the horse world, Mandy, it's butanbanamine. And the butanbanamine is what they give the horses to stop the pain. And then in 10 years, the horse is suffering from liver failure and kidney failure. And with our product, it actually helps the stomach, and it's 30 times stronger. So it's got great benefits.
Okay, so this is, yeah. Okay, so when you're talking about the equine market for animal bedding, right? Are you using the same stock, or are you as your flavonoid production, or are you guys growing differently? What's the field and farm side look like for your production for fiber and grain, or fiber?
So for the fiber is it's not related to the flavonoid plant.
Okay.
We also
are
use
you doing different genetics?
Yes, different genetics.
What region of where are your genetics coming from? What's working in Florida?
So what's working in Florida is anything that's below that 30, normally the 25 parallel. So Asian is the best. South Asia is the best as far as what we have down here. And the canaf is good too. The canaf from Africa, our canaf last year grew up to 25 feet tall before Hurricane Ian came and knocked it down. So they both have benefits. We have in Florida, especially South Florida, we have, no one makes fun of seasons, but we have temperate seasons. So like right now, we're dry, we're less humidity, and we'll be that way until May. And then then our humidity kicks in, and it's like that until December. So we've got 2 seasons for the planting with regard to the fiber type hemp. With regard to the flavonoid, we can grow that every day of the year and just keep pumping it out because there's no issue with that. And the same with cannabinoid hemp.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to everybody real quick that's listening. I see that Jeffrey and Kay in Utah. Kay, I'd love to get together with you if you're still listening. My email is mandy@globalhempassociation.org if you guys have questions. But Kay, I'm in Utah and I'm definitely pushing the Utah market now. Now they've kind of put some definition in separating cannabinoid production from fiber and grain production, which I think will help for scale. Brian, where do you see that impacting in your area, the need for that separation of, or do you see that it's important for the definition?
No, there needs to be the separation. I mean, it's ridiculous. We went with the definition. I know everybody was happy when the Farm Bill was passed in 2018 and that we could move on, but it was rushed so much that the education of the Congress, let alone the state legislatures, was not there, and you still don't have that education. You're having to educate the new office holders that are coming in now, because a lot of them have just been changed from the 2018-2020 time period. And the education is the most important thing, that your grain fiber hemp shouldn't even be categorized with a cannabinoid hemp. They're not even the same type of growth. They're not even close to the same type of crops. But it is actually getting the right people to educate the legislature and the administrations as far as the difference.
Yes. Yep. You're exactly right. Okay. So I'm really interested. I hear CNAF come up a lot, and it seems to be pretty easy to grow compared to this. And I don't know, right? But I hear a lot of success stories using CNAF for composites or different fillers. Where does it play a role in compared to hemp?
I'll honestly say for us here in Florida, where we can grow the CNAF in Florida, it grows better. It grows, and since we can do it all year long, our spring, so we'll plant the CNAF in March and April, and it'll come out in September and October, and that is what would be our true fiber bedding type of CNAF. When we plant the CNAF in September, October, because of the sunlight, I mean, it is truly photosensitive in the sense that from September until our February harvest, which we just harvest, you are looking at, it's just producing seed, and you get the gorgeous flowers. So it looks like a hibiscus flower. And every morning you go out and all the plants have all these hibiscus flowers, and they're creating the seed. And so you get tremendous seed production. We do from that fall to winter crop. And then our spring into the early fall is our fiber grain. So we can create our own seed in the winter and put it right back in the ground in the spring and pop it up in the summer.
Cool. Okay. So I want to dive into what's processing look like in Florida right now? What does scale look like? And then at end market, right? You've done some studies and being in the equine market, what's needed and what do we need to do to kind of bridge that gap?
So we're working with investors right now on putting in a true facility for the fiber aspect here in South Florida. We don't have it in South Florida. There's continual talks that Orlando, Orange County is going to put something in, and there's talks that there's investors doing that. We are in serious discussions. In fact, we're buying land, more land right now, and we are looking at 2 facilities right now that are old Orange Grove citrus facilities. What we're doing down here, Mandy, is a lot of people don't realize the orange business in Florida is about gone. Yeah. It's called greening, and it kills the oranges. And South Florida, the orange market is almost obliterated. If you look at the orange containers anymore, Tropicana, Minute Maid, 10 years ago, you would see Florida oranges.
Right.
You don't see that anymore. They don't advertise the Florida anymore because it's very rare. So what we have is we have a lot of orange groves that are dead. We have a lot of orange groves that are still trying to survive for the greening. And so what we're doing down here is we're going in, we're buying the old orange groves, we're clearing out the old trees. But the problem you have, Mandy, is there's so many chemicals in the ground from the last 5 to 10 years where they're trying to save these groves with chemicals, trying to figure out what would actually kill the bacterial infection. And so we see that as the opportunity to bring in the canaf, bring in the hemp, plant that, remediate the soil, use what we have for the actual end product. And whether that be hempcrete or be some type of plastic, we can still use that hemp and then remediate that soil. And whether that soil then ends up being used for hemp in the future, or more importantly, it's been cleansed and remediated so another crop can go in there. Because Florida, a lot of people realize how big of an agricultural state Florida is, but like right now, we're producing the majority of tomatoes, watermelons, peppers right now that will be on the spring market. So we're trying to do that, but in doing so, we've got our investors looking at the old orange grove processing facilities that are no longer in business and taking those buildings, and we're going to convert those into working with the hemp.
That's awesome. Okay, so talk to me about end market, right? Goal initially is targeting the equine animal bedding, and are you guys going to be doing any grain production? I assume no.
We're not going to be doing any grain production down here, and Mandy, we just haven't done I don't see where we can compete with the other states with the grain production. I mean, to be honest with you, when you talk about a drill seed in Florida, most people are like, what the hell's a drill seed? Because nobody down there, everything down here is raised beds and vegetables. So you don't find combines down here. Now, the one thing, here's one fact that most people don't realize. Florida is, I think, number 1 or number 2 state in producing fresh edible corn, sweet corn. So we do have that in more central Florida and up in North Florida. But that market, they're not going to change the ground for that purpose for the hemp. Down here, mid-Florida, southern Florida, the old orange groves, that's what we're looking to do that change. And I think it'll just be the fiber grain, the fiber hemp herd, not the grain as far as what we're going to be using.
Okay, so can you talk about like what you're anticipating for sowing density, and then through some of the specs maybe that you're trying to meet for quality? You know, what are we looking at for animal bedding quality as you bring farmers on? And the
quality is the biggest concern on it, Mandy. So when we've grown ours, we make sure our hemp, the herd, is less than 10% as far as dry. And everybody uses that number, but unfortunately, we have actually purchased hemp herd to use for bedding, and it's not. And the problem with that is the horses will eat it. If it's above 10%, that there's still that smell and that hemp herd that the horses will associate with food, and they will eat the bedding. And of course, you don't want a horse in there eating their bedding because they'll eat nonstop and then they'll colic. So making sure we have that hemp, the herd, actually dried as it should be dried. And then we've actually, over the last 3 years on my ranch, testing various varieties, different cuts, different blends, we actually find it more beneficial to have fiber, a small amount of that fiber mixed in with the herd. So they use the basic study that hemp will be 4 times more absorbent than wood bedding, like pine straw, and it'll last 4 times longer. What we have found is when you actually add the fiber, the small pieces of fiber in with that hemp herd, you're actually looking almost 8 to 10 times more absorbent. So a normal pine bedding will be basically it'll last 3 weeks if you do the entire stall, but you're also adding significant amount of bedding every day because the urine soaks up, it smells. You got the ammonia when you have pine bedding. I just call them the nuggets, but the horse manure sticks to that pine. So in one 12 by 12 stall, you can take out basically a 15-gallon bucket of bedding out every day when you're dealing with pine. With our bedding, with the hemp bedding, you're taking maybe a third of a bucket, and it's not the bedding. It's all just the manure and or the urine cake. The other benefit is you got 2/3 less waste. The waste that you do have, it does not have the bedding left in it. And what it does have, if it does stick, the hemp bedding, it's going to be biodegradable, and you can put it right on your pastures and use it as fertilizer. You don't have to wait, and it's not going to ruin your pastures.
Okay, so you said some pretty powerful numbers, and this is something that we talk about, right, all the time, is the absorbency and the ammonia, how it kills the smell of the ammonia. But 4 times more absorbent, so it lasts 4 times longer. That's a lot. I mean, that's when you look at big facilities, the labor alone that this cuts back, right? So when we talk then dollar for dollar or value, especially when we're looking at pine shavings that are pennies to buy per pound compared to, can you talk about how you have this conversation? And
so the most difficult thing is when you're talking to the feed stores, the stables, about what the actual cost to do a bed. So a 12 by 12 bedding, you're looking at $240 to $300, and everybody's like, holy cow. I mean, they're used to doing $40. And then you're like, well, here's the difference. Let's extend that out an entire year, because you're going to be cleaning out that 12 by 12 pine bedding stall every 3 weeks and putting new in. In addition to that, every day you're putting a bag to 2 bags in to refresh it. When you look at hemp, you're putting about 5 pounds in a week of new bedding. That's it. So when you take this out over a year time period, and we've worked with a lot of pine bedding manufacturers to use their numbers, in a year's time period, a 12 by 12 stall, you're looking at about $3,500 low ball, and I'm talking like a low base, up to $4,800 for your pine bedding per 12 by 12 stall. When you use the hemp, you're down to $2,200 at the low. And what I mean is where you don't have a lot of base. Some people don't like a lot of bedding. Up to the highest is about $3,200. Let's say $3,300. You're saving $1,000 off a year on bedding costs.
Because of its time. Yeah.
Mandy, that's the biggest thing, the time. And so I'll use, it happened. So when Hurricane Ian came through this September, we were flooded, and we had calves in what we call our South 30 pasture. We brought them into the main 50, and that's where our horse barns are. And we let our stalls stay open so our horses come in and out whenever they want to go. And what we quickly learned is the cattle, no matter how dry you have that hemp herd, they love it. They'll eat it. So,
really?
They'll chow down on it big time. And they came in and they ate all of the stalls up. And I was on the road. I came back on a Saturday morning, and there was no bedding in the stalls. So I was calling them like, where's the bedding? What happened? And my dad was like, well, it was full of bedding last night. And so I go around the corner, and there's Elvis, who's one of my bulls that he was a twin that his mama rejected. So he's like a dog. He's a 2,500 pound dog. And I come around the corner, and he has hemp all over his face. And he's just chowing down it. So
interesting.
That 35-day period, we had to go back to pine bedding because we had the cattle in there. And it was the worst thing, period. The dust came back in 30 days back in the barn. That ammonia smell was there. But the thing that everybody complained about was how much of a pain in the ass it was cleaning up these pine stalls, because you're taking out 15-gallon buckets from each stall. Our bedding, our waste bedding, huge piles. Versus before, you can do 6 stalls with the hemp bedding. You can get that done in 15, 20 minutes, and you're taking literally maybe 2 10-gallon buckets out. That's it. And it's because of the poop that you're picking up. You're not taking the waste. You're not taking any bedding.
Right. Okay. So adding fiber. Talk to me about what you're seeing as far as difference. I mean, you again jumped up from 4 times to 8 to 10 times. And what's that fiber ratio look like? And I have a question, because what I keep hearing is the horses are super sensitive to dust, right? Or breathing these small particles in. How is fiber obviously not a concern then? The fiber
So
piece?
we use very fine fiber, and we have a grate that it goes through. So it's not thick. It's fine. It's blended in. It will have more dust, of course, than the herd. But when you compare that mix of the herd and the fiber, it has so much less dust than pine bedding. But that
Okay.
having that little bit extra fiber in there, the absorbency is so much more. And it blends it together really well. When we see with the herd, what you get a lot of time with the herd is the urine cakes from the horses, it'll bounce off of the actual herd and be absorbed underneath. When you have that fiber mixed below and then you put the straight herd on top, then that fiber is soaking everything up, kind of like sand underneath and doing the work underneath.
Okay. See, so when we talk about inconsistencies, right, there are a lot of different animal bedding products that are being put on the market. Some that are just clean shiv, right? Just pieces of herd, and others are, have got more added to it. What are you seeing as far as market development in Florida for the equine, or the adoption of herd in your area as an animal bedding, herd and fiber?
It's this. It's like crack cocaine, I guess. You give it to the stable, they put it in, they use it, and they absolutely love it. And then the next question just is the price. And then you just have to show them, listen, you'll see the savings come over time. But once they're using it, you don't want to go back. You don't want to change because, and you said it, Mandy, the labor, just being able to not have to take that much time cleaning it up. And then your barn's not as dirty. The stables aren't as dirty. They don't have the dust everywhere. And it's better for the horse because when you're in there breathing the pine bedding, you get it in your throat, you can taste it. And then when you're in hemp, there's nothing there. And so you can tell how much better it is for you. It's better for the horses as well. And I'll go back to Mandy. The other thing that's really beneficial is it goes right onto your crop. Right onto your field, your pastures. You can put it in there. You can if you want right away, but we have it sit for an additional 30 days before we put it through our manure spreader on the field. You can't do that with pine. The pine flakes are sitting on that manure. And if you put that out there, that pine flake's sitting on the grass and it's killing the grass. And that's not going to decompose for 2 to 3 years. So that's another huge benefit that we're seeing. And when you show that, especially right now with fertilizer costs, you show that to some of these people and they're like, yeah, that you're paying somebody to come take that dump truck load of pine mixture manure away somewhere else. Now you don't have to pay for that. And you don't have to put fertilizer on your pastures because you can put directly the hemp and the manure straight onto the pasture.
Right. So, well, and again, it becomes this circular, eliminating the costs for the farm we're reducing costs for farm. Can you talk a little bit about that on the farm side and obviously you're pretty well closed looped, right? And what does scale look like? What are you anticipating for future acres over the next few years?
Well, that's the biggest problem we have in Florida and that's why we're partnering up with these orange groves and getting those to get the land. Florida land is not cheap. So that's one of the things we have an issue with, but with seeing how it can help the soil and help the old orange groves, we're just picking up land as soon as we can. We just picked up another 132 acres. So wherever we can find the acreage in a hub where we are, that's what we're looking to do. And then like in North Florida, we're looking to do the same thing as far as a location in North Florida. So it can shoot straight down to Ocala, be an hour and a half from Ocala as far as the horses there, and be able to grow it in Northern Florida and build a little small hub there. We're talking with people in Texas right now near Weatherford because we can get more land out there. And it's been very successful. The equine products in Weatherford You've got all the Fort Worth, the cutting horses, the reining horses. And then we also are having calls weekly with a group out of Lexington to do the same thing. We're trying to get the hubs where the horses are instead of shipping everything to where the horses are. But going back to Florida, Mandy, it'll take several years to get to where we need to be as far as how many acreage we need. But it's the last year it's changed, and it's going to change a lot this year. 2023 is going to be a great year.
Yes, it is. Thank you for saying that. It makes me a little nervous as we see acres developing. And I actually got a call, was texting actually with one of our members who said they've got a few thousand acres potentially going in, which is really refreshing because it makes me nervous. I hope to see it scale. Do you have anything to add?
I'll add this, Mandy. One thing we're seeing right now is, so we have the hemp pellets that we have for the horses, and it's a high CBDA pellet, cannabinoid pellet. We're finding harder and harder to actually find viable cannabinoid hemp, CBDA hemp, high hemp, that doesn't have heavy metals in it. So we grow what we grow down here. Florida's sand, so there's nothing in the sand. So we control what's actually feeding that plant. But when we're looking at like going out to Texas and Kentucky and being able to grow hemp there to provide for the pellets, when we're testing the actual hemp out there, it's got the metals in it, and we just can't have heavy metals in that end product. So I think, Mandy, there's going to be an issue with people going away from cannabinoid hemp, jumping over to herd hemp, and having the right type of product for both sides of the industry, having enough cannabinoid and having the right type of fiber herd hemp.
Yeah, well, and I think that this contaminated, where it's being grown and then where that end market plays such a big role. Even if we look into animal bedding compared to building materials or into a composite, how much of that and what does that process look like? I'd love to learn more as you guys really dive into that and explore.
Well, because the thing is, if animals are going to be using it, and see, I've used it on my animals. So if I won't use it on my animal, I'm not going to have it as a product. So one thing that we do, Mandy, on all of our products is we have our QR code or our barcode track trace. So Food Safety Modernization Act, food companies are required to track trace from when that tomato was planted to when it's actually in your container. We can do that with our hemp. So on all of our packaging, you can take your phone, hit the barcode, hit the QR code. It'll pop up the seed, when we planted, when we harvested, if it's a cannabinoid, flavonoid product, when we extracted it. And then it'll have the third-party COA that has not only the cannabinoid, flavonoid content, it has all pesticides, all microbials, all toxins, all heavy metals. So the consumer can see that right there. And I think in our world, what we have, because we got the canine products as well, that has been just separating us from others, because we just got NASC certified, which that is the greatest certification you can have for animal supplements. And so we're NASC certified. And one of the biggest things they liked was the fact that we can track and trace and show exactly what's in our product.
That's awesome. Are you going to do the same thing with your other products? And are you shipping when you do your herd? How are you going to distribute? Will it be in compressed bags, or are you going to do super sacks?
We've been doing super sacks.
Is that how most stalls are ordering it or want it?
So the smaller one or two like barn stalls, they want the compressed bags. We have the bags. When we're doing a deal with either with a racetrack or with a stable, we're doing it in the big ag sacks, super sacks. We have Jesse Lennox, who's out in Weatherford, Texas. Jesse is one of the top cutters in the world, and he sponsors our product, not only our hemp flavin product for the horses for performance wise, but he also has our bedding in his stables. And at his place, we just ship him the super sacks, because that's what I do at my stable. It's easier to have a sack and just fill it up than open up the dang bags and unload them. So it's going to be more consumer driven, because like the feed stores, they want the actual compressed bags. So we have to, as you know, fill the needs of the consumer first.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of where I was curious, is the handleability or the ease of the size of those compressed bags to move around, and even a lot of stalls using them strictly because it's easy to move. But
Yeah.
I definitely also like the idea of less plastic. So it's fun to
Yeah, we promote the less plastic, we promote the recycling. So they're super sacks. We pick up the super sacks just like you used to pick up the old milk jugs and bring them back, and they have their own super sacks, and you go back with them on that. And we also have the pelletized bedding as well, Mandy, which that's where we actually, when you get that fiber and the herd and you pelletize it, that compression right there is really good. So when you do put them on the bedding on the floor and you wet it down and it expands, that we really have to do in the bags, because it's just easier that way in the bagging.
Okay. So, wow, I'm impressed. Talk to me about the size of facility and capacity of the facility itself that you guys are looking to bring on. I know you said 2, like a smaller hub. Are you thinking 1 to 2 tons compared to a 10-ton, per hour facility? What are you looking at for processing?
So the one that's near us here in La Belle area, South Florida, that one's the square footage of the building is just under 200,000 square feet. So we're going to be able to adapt and do whatever tonnage we want to do in that building.
Awesome.
When we're looking at the North Florida aspect and we're looking at going to Weatherford, then that's more the 2-ton.
Yeah. Awesome. Distribution. Are you guys looking really just to target Florida? Well, I guess you said Florida. What about fulfilling some of these other, like you said, the composite market and micro composites? And have you guys made headway there? What's your team look like?
Well, we really haven't looked into that, Mandy, as far as the composites. We've had a couple outside experts come in that have experience in it and want to get involved. And so that's part of the discussion with them.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be hemp that we have that is going to be targeted for the equine bedding, and there'll be others that will be for other use, whether it be hempcrete, whether it be composites. We were approached in the last 6 months by one of the universities around here that wants to eliminate plasticware, and they want to see if they can team up with us and us use some of their students and some of their professors to then make like hemp stick for their cafeteria and all that. So there's those type of discussions going on. As far as our staff, we've got what I call hands-on, just learn as we go. And then we have like Morgan Coffey, who's our chief science officer. He's the one behind the flavonoid research. He's the one that knows how to extract the flavonoids. We have Tyler and Sabrina Million that are just, Tyler 2 years ago, probably didn't have any knowledge on hemp. Tyler, as far as what we need to do, he runs our facilities. He knows what we need to get. So it's like everybody, I think you get the people that have been in it since 2014, 15, or the people on the cannabis side, like Morgan's been in it since 2001. Mm-hmm. Doing medical marijuana in California back then. You get those experience, and then you get just the hard workers, because what I've learned and what we've learned is I don't care what degree you have. I don't care where you think you went to school and how smart you are. I want to see how hard you work and then how hard you adapt. And one benefit we have in South Florida is our workforce, our Latino workforce is just amazing. I mean, they will just mow down any other workforce you can ever imagine. And it's just really exciting to see them excited about being proud. I mean, you go throughout town and you see them wearing our equine hemp shirts or our Star Manufacturing shirts. And it's just exciting to see they've got like an ownership and they've got a connection to it.
That's awesome. Well, it's crazy what passion it brings out, right? I don't know any other industry or plant that really hits every sector, from medical to construction
Right.
to energy to remediation, agriculture. I mean, it's all so beneficial, and hemp is at the forefront of so many of those conversations. So
It's just got to, the education's got to continue, and the money's got to continue, because it's there. It's the best thing for the environment. I mean, there is absolutely zero waste of any plants. Our cannabinoid plant, our fiber herd plant, and the flavonoid, everything's used. The root's used at the end. We mill the root. We make the root into tea. We mix the root into a pulp. When we have, after we mill the plant for the cannabinoid, after it's gone through our CO2 extraction, a lot of people just think that extra biomass pulp is waste. We've used that for fertilizer. We've used that in the pellets for the horses. It's just, you got to control the cannabinoid content, and there's not anything wasted at all. In fact, Mandy, I'll send you this picture afterwards, where we have our milling machines. You have all this extra coarse dust, and we would sweep. We started doing this 2 years ago. We'd sweep the dust into this square that's concrete, but just bad dirt. Nothing can grow in it. And then we drop our seeds in that, because we're trying to genetically work on a plant that can grow in the worst crap soil possible. But that hemp pulp that we sweep into that area, you plant them with the hemp pulp, and you plant it without the hemp pulp. And that hemp pulp, that plant grows off of itself, just how like the plant grows off of its own flavonoids. And it's really cool to see that there's absolutely zero waste on these plants at all.
I've been seeing lately people selling starts that are grown in hemp fiber. Like, same thing, right? The decorticated, same idea. And I know that Melissa down at Global Fiber, she did the same thing. She had these beautiful pots that she planted this summer that were she filled them with hemp herd. It was awesome. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask you about equipment. Like, how do you anticipate modifying, or what type of equipment do you guys need in your area to scale? Because you said really you don't have like the drill, and you don't have probably the same. Yeah.
We went up to the Midwest and brought some of their drills and all that stuff down. So we have that, but it's the scaling of it is going to be key.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you're actually harvesting. So September, October in South Florida, it's a different world altogether with your vehicles, your ag equipment. The muck, the mud is just unbelievable. So you've got to be cautious with that. We got to be cautious when we're harvesting at that point in time, because we still have really high humidity. That's why when we're looking at this facility with 200,000 square feet, these old orange grove processors have these huge refrigerator buildings that used to store the oranges. So we're looking at that being viable to then bring in to be able to dry easier, since we've got so much humidity on the outside.
That's what else I was going to ask, is the redding. Like in that process, what does control of that look like, or specs of that look like into your equipment?
We're still learning.
Yeah. I mean, this is really where I look at both opportunity and this unknown, especially in Florida. You see some of these other areas where moisture is pretty controlled and humidity, but your harvest time is your rainy season, isn't it?
Yeah, we're coming right out of the rainy season for the fiber herd type. We're coming right out of the rainy season. And the other thing is, Mandy, we have no idea. Like this past year when Hurricane Ian came through, normally in September we get about 15 inches of rain. October we'll get 6 to 7 inches of rain. Hurricane Ian came through. It dropped 6 inches of rain around where the crops were within the first hour of the storm. And then we didn't get any rain after all. It just spit. But the weirdest thing is in October, we got half an inch of rain, and it was dry as dry can be. So we still have, unfortunately, we've got to deal with those unknown hurricanes that come in.
Yeah.
And that's why we're planting 1 month earlier this year so that we can hopefully, Florida's hurricanes predominantly are mid-September to mid-October. So hopefully we can get out and not have to deal with a hurricane issue like we did last year.
Yeah. Are you guys participating in any kind of carbon programs?
We've looked at them, and here's the whole problem, man. It's just finding out the ones that are actually legitimate, and they come in and like, well, yeah, you got, well, because Canaf's got even a higher carbon remediation than hemp. And so we show them this, and then the end product, and I don't know if other people are encountering this as well, but the end product, they're like, well, we have to be able to show that it's not, the carbons aren't going to escape for 100 years afterwards. So like for the hemp bedding, you don't get it, they're not giving any carbon credit for that period, because you're putting it back in the soil and you can't show that it's not going to escape for 90 to 100 years. So that's one thing that we'd love to find, somebody that actually has a viable option. The thing I think we're finding more on, Mandy, is working with companies, and whether you're pro ESG or not pro, anti, whatever.
Yeah.
ESG in Europe is here. The European people need ESG credits, and it's their similar carbon credit. And so when you look at what ESG can actually be credited for the environmental side and the social side, that is, I think, where we're finding more of a benefit than actually carbon credits at this time, until that carbon credit market actually matures and figure out what it's going to be.
Yeah, I've definitely heard there's different types of credits, right? Some that are just in the soil, what you're doing in the soil by, say, adding hemp as a rotation or adding grazing animals or more regenerative practices. But then also, like you said, locking the carbon up in a block in a home then is a different type of credit. But I know that they're maturing. Another thing that I've seen that I'm really impressed, there's a couple of platforms that really are farmer focused, that their revenue doesn't come from farm. The program is set up to benefit farm, and then the buyer actually helps to subsidize or pays for the use of their service. So it's not coming straight out of farmer's pocket. What I do worry about in some of this is the farmer being at the center and not gaining anything from the benefits. Right, is that there's these middleman brokers that then become too powerful and eat it up. But like I said, there are a few. Pan Exchange, I've seen they've done some great. Seth Boone is incredibly smart and has done some great things. But yeah, I am curious there. Well, anything that we can do to help, Brian? What are what kind of things do you need in Florida from the network or from me? How can we help you?
I just think the education, and you guys are doing that, but that's, I know it's beating a dead horse, pardon the pun, but the education is the key, is people understanding the difference between the cannabinoid, fiber, hemp, the benefits of it. That is the biggest obstacle, I think, on everything. And then like when we talk about flavonoids, we're having to educate people on flavonoids. And I always refer to Dr. Gundry. If you look at his commercials, he's always talking about the benefits of the reds and the greens, and that's what it is for hemp. One thing, Mandy, is this has not been published yet. We've got our first report. Last year, one of the dogs we rescued, because we work with dog rescues and horse rescues across the country, one of the dogs we rescued had heartworms, and the heart was 2.5 times normal size. She had a fractured neck. And when we brought her in, the vet just basically said, give her pain medication. He was giving us Rimadyl, and she's going to probably pass in the next 30 to 60 days because of her heart, because of the heartworms. And because her heart was so big, you couldn't give her heartworm medication. So we gave her the canine hemp flavin, which is the flavonoid mix. And when that started, this is in 2021 in October. And in December, I've got a video of this dog running, jumping up with the bed and excited. And I sent it to the vet the rescue vet, and he calls me. He's like, that dog would die. She shouldn't be able to run like that. I'm like, well, I don't know, but she's a complete different dog than she was. And I said, I think she's doing well. He goes, she can't do well. He said, go get an x-ray. So we went and got an x-ray the next day from our vet, and her heart was normal size.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and we've got the videos. It's on our website. If you go to caninehempsolutions.com, you've got the story about Rosita, and her heart was normal size. So with that, we started doing other research on the flavonoids. And so you've got rutin, apigenin, bacillin. They all have like an anti-parasitic, antimicrobial benefit in all the research. And then you tie that in with that 30 times anti-inflammatory. And what the scientists were basically saying, they think it's a combination, kind of like an entourage effect of all those flavonoids working together. So then last spring, we did it on cattle. Yeah. And so we tried to see, so the one thing like with Rosita, she received 200 micrograms every day. So that was a constant. So in the cattle world, you have ivermectin. That is the one thing that kills the parasites, but it's a one-time dose. You bring it through the cattle chute, you give them that one-time dose. Of course, you can't take your cattle to market if they're beef cattle out for 14 days because of the repercussions. So we were trying to find the dosage of what it would be for cattle. And we were basically only at 10 milligrams. So flavonoids are at a microgram level. So we're at 10 milligrams. And at 10 milligrams, it killed 47% of all of the infested larvae, the parasitic larvae. Ivermectin kills 88%. So what I was getting to is this past weekend, we just got a report from one of the other vets we work with who's testing it on the deer population. Deer, goats, and sheep are horrific when it comes to parasites. And so what they ended up receiving was basically 200 micrograms a day, and it ends up being a gram over the total 4-week period. So we used alfalfa pellets, we spray it with our hemp flavin, the flavonoid, and they were fed to the deer over this 5-week period. And 5 weeks ago, they had 1,800 eggs per gram. Parasitic eggs per gram. And Dusty called me this weekend. We talked. After 5 weeks, it has 0 eggs per gram. So,
and I think the key thing, like you said, is this is already on a dietary path instead of fighting,
right.
That's awesome. Very cool.
The other thing I add that we did last year, we didn't get the freeze this year, but last year, when we had 4 freezes in a row in Florida. We hadn't had it since 1989. We pumped the flavonoids into our drip line on our cannabinoid hemp. And we did 1 acre with it, and we did 1 acre without the flavonoid. And the acre that had the flavonoid through the drip line, the hemp flavin, not only survived all 4 freezes, they actually produced more weight than they did the previous year. Whereas the acre that we did not give the flavonoid, they got hit by the freeze. They were half the normal weight. It was not beneficial. So we actually use the hemp flavin in our drip lines because it has that natural anti-parasitic, that natural antiviral, ozone protecting. It has all that naturally in it. So it's what the plants use to protect itself from ultraviolet rays, from bugs. So we're just pumping more into it, kind of like its own little flavonoid steroid to help it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just giving it strength. Okay, so what's cost look like to do something like that, or to get, and how do people get in touch with you if they're interested in flavonoids, to use them, to purchase them, to collaborate on business? Yeah, what's contact info?
Phone number is 202-570-0248. I know it's a DC number, but that's always what I had as my DC number when I was as a lawyer. I'm still a practicing lawyer, but that's my number. The email is bdickerson, DICKERSON @star-hemp.com. And you can go to our website, which is equinehempsolutions.com, caninehempsolutions.com. And then we also have doctorshempsolutions.com. And that's another thing, Mandy. There was a clinical study in November of 2021 that was published in January 2022 and peer reviewed using our hemp flavin on humans. And they had 65 people had to have an 8 to 10 chronic pain level. After 30 days, 94% of the pain level participants went down to a 5 or 6. 91% went down to a 0 or 2.
What?
So here, that right there, as we talked, I just had my bicep reattached and reconstructed. I didn't take any drugs. I took our hemp flavin. And I'll admit I took it at the equine dose level because I needed to figure out what was going to stop the pain. But I didn't take any controlled substances after having my bicep reattached 2 Saturdays ago. I took our hemp flavin. So
okay, so I just shared contact info for anybody that didn't get it written down. It's on the screen. It will go to some of the social channels. But so Brian, you can reach out to Brian if you have any questions. Yeah, I'm totally excited. I'm very excited about this, and I'm very excited for the Florida market. Florida market I've been working on for a little while, or really been interested in because all the same reasons you listed. I am still. It'll be interesting to see what scale looks like. You know, what fiber production looks like, and like you said, being able to have the equipment down there was key and a huge expense that farmers have to, incur. So. Yeah, great. Anything else, Brian? Anything you want to add? Any shout outs you want to give real quick before we sign off? We're already at an hour. I'd love to continue to support you the best that I can.
I just think, Mandy, we're looking to help you guys any way you can in Florida. The association has any questions, needs any contacts, let us know. We're trying to work with the government officials down here to push more hemp, and I think we're getting there. We got a bunch of the old Orange Grove families that are now talking with us that want to get Florida. Our Orange Groves are gone, so they may be able to figure out something in the future. But for right now, how to fix those Orange Groves, the land, and get hemp growing in Florida as much as possible. And I mean, we want to help everywhere in the country, but like Florida alone, our agricultural side is huge. We can benefit from that, and our equine is an $8 billion industry by itself. So. We got to do what we need to do.
Well, and people with these thoroughbred and racing horses, they're their athletes, right? They want to feed them the best they can, and they're willing to pay for it. And so there is definitely a price difference if it makes sense, right? It has to make sense, but it makes sense. They want to make sure that they are fed the best, just like our athletes. And so, it's definitely an open market. I want to also give thanks. Buzz had mentioned if you have a link to your study, is it on your website? Did you say?
Yeah, they're on the website.
Here's the website again, Buzz, just in case you didn't see it, equinehempsolutions.com.
And then the newest one with the deer is not on there yet because that just came out, Mandy.
Oh, perfect. So I guess watch for it. I assume that you guys will get it posted here pretty soon. Well, maybe when you do, I'd love to have you on and share about it, or somebody on your team. And shout out to Morgan. I don't know if he's listening, but he's always been great. He always reaches out and connects. I got connected with him a couple years ago, so it's fun to.
Morgan's the genius behind the flavonoids.
See it all coming around in full circle. Are you guys going to be at NOCO or traveling at all to any events?
I think Morgan's going to be at NOCO. I'm going to have to be up in Kentucky at Lexington at one of the big horse shows, but Morgan's going to be at NOCO.
Well, enjoy. If there's, like I said, if there's anything we can do, we'd love to see you. There's a lot of great events in Florida. Maybe when I come out, we can connect. I'd love to shake your hand and meet face to face. But besides that, everybody, thank you very much for joining today. We do have a couple other interviews next week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And then also a Q&A discussion next Tuesday where you can find the event link on our website. I did share the link earlier, but globalhempassociation.org/events. And all of them are listed there. Other than that, you guys, thank you very, very much. Brian, thanks again for everything that you do in the industry. I really appreciate you. And let's stay in touch.
Thank you, Mandy.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Thank you.